There's a certain way I thought my day was going to go, and I had a really realistic list on what I thought I would be able to get done. But you know what? Life's always full of surprises. Mine's not the exception. And sometimes the best I can do is to roll with the punches and to do just what I could. So today I'm going to share with you the decluttering I thought I would do and what stopped me and what ended up getting decluttered. And I think we'll all find some encouragement and motivation in that. Welcome to my home. If you're new here, my name is Karen, and I'm getting the kitchen kind of tidied up, at least tidied up enough that I can make some cinnamon coffee cake. And it is a packaged mix. I am going to show you the box right here. I made my own chicken stock the day before, and the bones were left in the pot. So I'm just getting those thrown away. The stock came out really good. I'm telling you, patience is a virtue when it comes to making chicken stock. Just letting it boil for hours gives you such a depth of flavor. Used it last night in a soup. So here is the quick bread that I was using. It's usually my husband and one of my son's favorite birthday cakes, but I was making this for a breakfast. I find it easy to resist this one. If it's not chocolate, honestly, I can pretty much resist it. So I knew I wasn't going to be tempted to eat it. I didn't mind making it. Plus, it was a way to start a declutter on my pantry because it was sitting there in the pantry. I had bought it to use over Christmas. I bought two. I think they must have been on sale too for something. And we only ended up making the one. So I thought if I get it made, that's one less box in my pantry. After this is going to be brownies once this is all eaten. And I have to say the brownies will be a lot harder for me to resist than this cinnamon cake was. So I'm getting this made up, and my plan was to show you my main house as being decluttered and tweak any little parts that still needed to be done. But that was not what was to happen for a couple of reasons. One of those reasons is because our dishwasher has been on the fritz for the last couple of days. So I needed to hand wash the dishes that were in the dishwasher as well as what I had built up in the sink while I was silently hoping that it would just magically work. And the other issue I had was opening under my sink. I quickly realized that I'm not as decluttered and organized as I thought I was, so we're going to have to do a little bit more work, but I am looking forward to getting to show off a nice tour of a decluttered home. Now, just a truth bomb, that doesn't mean that my basement is completely decluttered. No, no, no. I'm talking about the main areas of the house. There'll still be lots of work to do in the basement, and I was thinking once I did this little home tour of the celebration of having the main house decluttered, then I would focus on the basement. But I'm going to have to mix it up, I think, and just keep going through the house and maybe dedicate one day a week to the basement and the rest of the house, the rest of the week to continuing to organize, declutter any little things that still need to be decluttered throughout the main house. You know, it's kind of like being nose blind. They say that if you have a certain smell in your house, you could be nose blind to it because you're just used to it. So you kind of need to leave the house for a few hours, come back, and sometimes even that doesn't work. I think, honestly, every family has their own kind of distinctive, okay, that doesn't even sound right, but you know what I mean? Anyway, I think when we see the same thing over and over in the house, it's very similar. You can completely ignore a certain mess in your house, and then, you know, you go to celebrate that it's all organized, open up a couple cabinets and think, oh, okay, guess I'm not doing quite as well as I thought I was doing. Oh, goodness gracious. But back to the dishwasher. What happens, and it's happened before, this dishwasher I think is about 4 or 5 years old, if I'm remembering correctly. I think, well, no, it's 3 or 4. It was either 2020 or 2021. I kind of feel like it was 2021 that we redid the kitchen. I remember that it was close enough to 2020 that it was hard to get workers here. But it was far enough away that it was still possible to get workers here. And everybody was redoing their houses during that time since we were all quarantined at home. Anyway, once in a while what happens is it starts flashing, and there's an error code or something that the flashing is supposed to mean, and it's supposed to mean leaking. Okay, here's all the dishes that I'm going to have to hand wash because I was just like, I can't wait any longer because I just can't stand my kitchen being that much of a mess. As it turned out, later this day, it stopped flashing and it's worked ever since. So what happens is There's water somewhere it's not supposed to be. So my husband normally will pull the dishwasher out, try to figure out where the leaking is. We never do find it. And over time, it does correct itself, and we're never sure if it's because he pulled everything out or if it is because it just healed itself. So this time he pulled nothing out. It had rained significantly, so we thought, is it rain getting into where it doesn't belong, or is it an internal problem with the dishwasher? So we're still not quite sure. It feels like it must be a very, very tiny leak, like dripping or something that we just can't see because it's so slow and tiny, and maybe it builds up over time. I'm really not quite sure. But this time it was a couple of days and then it was working perfectly again. And that's usually about what it is. It usually is 2 or 3 days and then it starts working again. So I'm not quite sure whether getting a new dishwasher would change anything. It's kind of a mystery. Oh, don't you hate that? I feel like a lot of mysteries in the world, no, not in the world, but definitely in my home, are either electricity or plumbing. But 9 times out of 10, it's plumbing, and the other time, it's something to do with electricity. It's just crazy. But, when you get a leak in your house, it can travel. And so it's hard to figure out where it originates. In fact, we've had some very mysterious leaking in this house over time. We do know we have to keep the ice off the roof or it leaks and then it freezes, leaks, freeze, or you know what I mean? It melts, freezes, and you can get leaking that way from ice dams. And we've had that problem. We used to have a long light in our kitchen and it would fill up with water, which was quite scary. We've had the soffit over my head where I am right now, where we have recessed lighting. We've had that leak. And once when we were trying to sell our home, in the room that is like a 3-season porch, we had where it used to be my office, we had leaking going right down the wall. We called it crying, and it was like humidity. It would be on a humid day where it would happen. So my husband is preparing to make himself a Middle Eastern dish. I say Middle Eastern because I think it was something maybe from Turkey. I'm not quite sure, but he loves to look at different recipes. So he's making, it's basically like a meatball with lamb. It was supposed to be a mixture, I think, of lamb and beef, but we didn't have beef, so he used ground turkey, and it has some sort of a yogurt mixture on top. I didn't film the recipe, but perhaps if he makes it again, then I'll be able to get it filmed. And here's Leo. Uh-oh, I didn't even realize he was that close to the cake. Oh, cats. I'm telling you what, they're just everywhere. Okay, there's another reason I didn't eat that cake. Luckily, all the other stuff is in its packaging, and I'm sure he's gonna, yeah, that's where I'm like, okay, that's my water cat. Get out. Oh, he's back to himself, as you can tell. Anyway, if my husband makes that recipe again, I will be sure to film it if you're interested in it. So here I am putting the dishes away while he's trying to cook. It's so funny because where we have this island, it makes, of course, the kitchen almost galley style, L-shaped galley style. But we're all pretty good. It's almost like a dance. We're pretty good at staying out of each other's way and just kind of working around each other. Speaking of being blind to your own home, we're also quite blind to this cat right now. I can't really explain it or understand it. It just is what it is. As you can see, it's already dark outside, so it's just been one of those days. And as though I had intended to film decluttering, it just didn't happen. I ended up decluttering the dirty dishes in the house, and then I walked into my living room and I saw that there was a Mount Washmore of clothes that needed to be folded. And by then it was after dinner, so I just decided, you know what, let's just call it a day. We watched some TV while I folded Mount Washmore, and I decided that I would start fresh the next day. By the way, we finished watching Blue Bloods. I think it was on this night. It's always so sad when we finish a series. We've been watching it on Paramount Plus. Look at me. Okay, I'm like, I'm done. Is it bedtime yet? We've been watching it on Paramount Plus, and so we kind of raced through all of the seasons. That was a really good show. I really loved it, and it's just so interesting to see Tom Selleck because, we were watching him back with Magnum PI and kind of grew up watching him, it feels like. So also you can see the Valentine decor above my head. That is all of the Valentine decor I have up this year. There's been different years where I've done more, but this year I just really wasn't into it. I kind of was looking more forward to the clean slate, and I will do some spring decorations, which I really consider more warm weather decorations, not technically spring because I don't do a whole lot to switch over to summer. So it's about bedtime, and I am getting this load switched over and getting the dryer started before I go to bed. I have been going to bed earlier and earlier. Oh, goodness. It's like my body completely rejected the time change that we had in November, and I was just thinking last night as I was laying there, I think I went up at 8:30, and I was thinking, okay, this is going to make sense once we change clocks again in spring forward. But the next day or through the night, we got about 6 inches of snow. So there was lots of shoveling. We did have a plow guy come, but he came at like 5 in the morning, so we did not get to move the cars for him. My intention here was to do a quick little rearrange and then put everything back. But as I took everything out, I realized the liner was just really, really disgusting. And also there's some sort of red staining on the door. I don't even know what that is. So Leo thought, okay, it's my time. I am the supervisor here, so I need to inspect everything, make sure there's no little mouse droppings, which thankfully there were not, and assess the situation. So he did his full assessment before I got a chance to clean. I was actually relieved. Okay, that's a fire extinguisher back there in the corner. I was relieved that I could actually get this liner clean. I thought it looked like it was melted in some sections, and I thought, is the piping or something melting it? But it really wasn't. It just was dirty. So I pulled it out because I don't have any more liners. If I'd have had another liner, I would have just replaced it. But as it was, I was able to pull it out, scrub it down, and put it back in. But you could see where the liner ends, and like the crevices had gotten dirty. So I wanted to get in there and scrub it the best that I could. And I was appreciating the fact that this liner really does protect the bottom of this cabinet. I wish I could just cover all of the cabinets with plastic because the paint is about as thin as you could imagine. I mean, we would never accept a manicure that was as thin as the paint on these cabinets. So it's good that the inside still looks new. Also, tell me if you're like me. Whenever I do a project like this, that's super messy, super dirty, and then when I organize it, I get it all clean, I just want to open that cabinet all day long, twice on Sundays. I just want to look at it, revel in how beautiful and organized it is. Tell me if you are that way too. Oh goodness. So here is the liner in all of its glory. And I didn't honestly expect to be able to get it clean, as I said. So I took a dry paper towel to it first to get off like any little chunks or that sort of thing. And then I took my Dyson to it as well to get off any, sand or anything that would raise up. And then this is actually a brush that came with a toilet cleaning brush. I have a silicone toilet cleaning brush. I've never actually used this brush on the toilet. I have 2 of the brushes that came with it, but it does make a great cleaning brush for other areas of the house. And I completely forgot I own the brush, and I was even thinking, should I go to the store and buy a brush? Because I feel like I really need a brush for this job, and all the while I had 2 right in the spot that I was cleaning. So I just use all-purpose cleaner, mostly because I love the smell, and it came up and everything came off with the brush, and it was as good as new. I'm just making sure everything is dry so that I don't get any trapped moisture underneath the cabinet, in between the liner and the cabinet itself, because they're not, even wood, you shouldn't have water on it, But, you know, when you get this inexpensive cabinetry, oh boy, water is the enemy. So I wanted to make sure it was all nice and dry. Also, I don't know, you might want to rewind this a little bit and notice that the back of my shirt says Vermont. Do you know why the back of my shirt says Vermont? Is because I had my shirt on backwards and I didn't even know it. So halfway through during this project, I looked down and I'm like, why doesn't it say Vermont on my shirt? And it was because I had my shirt on backwards. This little black shelf actually is from Temu. So is that gray. That's actually a colander that I never use as a colander. I've thought about getting rid of it. I might someday. It's one of those ones you put over the sink and then you can rinse your fruits and vegetables, which is a great idea and I would still like to use it. I just need to remember to use it. I think that's how we get set in our ways. We get to an age where we don't remember. Okay, now it says Vermont on the front of my shirt. So in between the clip where I am putting the plastic liner in and this clip, I had realized it and changed my shirt around. Oh goodness, that is just a little bit of Karen #real life. And then these dishwasher pods, I like. It's the brand Finish, which I really like. They used to have the hardened cubes. Those are the ones I liked so much better because there was no liquid at all. In fact, I'm wondering if one of them is why I have red staining on my cabinet, although I can't figure out how that would have happened. But some of them have either leaked or got punctured, or if there's too much heat and humidity, they'll stick together. So I like the brand because whenever I use Cascade, I don't know if it's me just being sensitive or what, but I can taste the soap on my dishes. But I don't have that problem when I use Finish. This is the container. It's a glass container that I put them in. So what I decided to do is any that have been compromised and are stuck together or look like there's any amount of leaking, I put in a Gladlock bag so that they wouldn't leak and get all over my glass jar, and the rest I just kept in the glass jar. But the big container of Finish, it was almost empty anyway, so I was able to declutter that container. The other thing that I decluttered right away from this little pull-out drawer was my large bottle of white vinegar. I have a 1-gallon bottle of white vinegar because I was always using that in place of rinse, which I actually loved. It did a great job. Here's some dishwasher tabs that I never use, or actually sink tabs. I think you put it down the sink. I never use them. They're so old. I just got rid of them. But one of you told me that if you have rubber tubing or, you know, any plastic rubber parts to your dishwasher, that the vinegar can slowly eat away at that. Well, I certainly didn't want that to happen, so I have stopped using it. And then this is an old Brillo pad. I tell you, you could really only use a Brillo pad once and then it rusts. So I must have been planning to use it again, so I put it in a Gladlock bag. And then this little stopper, it came with a large one and a small one, and I never used a small one, so I got rid of it. And then that little plastic bottle with the opening there, that is how I fill my steamer. So as soon as I find my steamer pads, I'll be using that again. So I did keep that. I was able to get to declutter a few things there, which made me feel good. And I'm just making sure all of my containers are clean, and then I'll put them back in. That also is like an old stopper for the sink, and I was keeping it as a spare, but since I really buy them at like the Dollar Tree or Family Dollar for $1 or $2, I decided it was kind of a rusty mess, so I just threw it away, and everything else was able to be cleaned and vacuumed out just like new, and so I kept everything else. Also, I don't buy regularly from Temu. In fact, I don't think I've ever bought any Temu with my own money. Way back when they first started, they had offered me free products to show, and I was happy with, let's say, 80% of what I got. You know, thick plastic is thick plastic. Doesn't matter where you buy it. It's going to be good. They actually have a lot of pretty things, but I've never actually ordered from them, and I don't, anytime they've reached out to me again, I don't represent them on my channel anymore because I know some people have had trouble with them or trouble with their credit cards. And I don't know what's true and what's not, but I'd rather definitely err on the side of caution and not show anything. But these two things that I put under my sink, I have kept, and I really do enjoy them. But I'm sure that you can get them, you know, other places. Amazon, for one, Walmart probably. There's a lot that's, I like to check on Dollar General and Dollar Tree and Family Dollar off and on. And it's always good when you can go into a store and get things too. I do find Amazon very reliable. I know some people have had trouble with different items not, being the size you thought they were going to be or that sort of thing. But I really haven't had that problem. Okay, there's some twisty ties that I also was getting rid of. So I always like to vacuum things out when I'm cleaning them first, or to use a dry paper towel or cloth first and then go in with the wet, because I just find that it's a lot less mess than if you immediately go in with wet. Sometimes you're making mud, sometimes you're making it harder to clean than it could be if you just got all of the dust and debris off first. So I'm getting everything cleaned up, and then we'll start reassembling underneath the sink, and I could not be happier with how it turned out. If you've ever taken the organization test from Cass from Clutterbug, and you can just Google that, Clutterbug organizational test or something like that, I am a ladybug, which means I like to macro organize, and I like to have containers with no lids that I can just toss things in. I don't want to have to micro organize and put things in little tiny categories. I also don't want, did I say I don't want lids? I don't want lids because you can't toss if you've got a lid to remove first. And I also like my house to look like no one lives there. So I don't like to have things out. I like to have them hidden. So the closest I have to things being out is really my kitchen countertops. I have things out in the bathroom where I have my washing machine, but there is a pretty basket that I can toss things into. If I start to see things over the top of the basket, that does get to me. I don't really mind the things that I have on the countertops in the kitchen. I'm not quite sure why. It doesn't seem to bother me, but I do kind of rearrange it every once in a while as though there would be a neater way to display it. I really like that I'm motivated to take on these tasks this time of year because, ooh, look how pretty it is. Because that is going to make spring cleaning that much easier. Spring in Maine comes later than other places, definitely not March 20th. But once spring really hits and it's nice weather, you want to be outside. You certainly don't want to be inside cleaning. But a lot of the reason why I end up cleaning in the spring is just the way that the earth is tipped and where I am, the way the sun comes into my home. Once spring really hits and the way the sun comes in, I do tend to see dirt that I wasn't noticing before. And everything feels kind of dirty. But wouldn't it be great if all I had to do for spring cleaning was to wipe things down? Or even better, if I was on a good enough schedule with each room that I didn't even have to do any spring cleaning. I know that a lot of you who use the Fly Lady, you don't do spring cleaning because you're doing these 15-minute projects in each room. I will say this did take me longer than 15 minutes. But it was definitely well worth the time I put into it. I absolutely love it. After that was done, I had some leftover energy. So in a previous video, you saw me doing the doors of this refrigerator, mostly because I did not have the bandwidth to take on the shelving. And then the rotary here, my Lazy Susan on the left, was stuck to the actual shelf. So I had to get a knife out, kind of pry it under there to release it so it had something sticky there. I usually have liners there, and I cleaned out the fridge before the holidays. I didn't put the liners back in, so you can see I'm looking for things that are outdated that need to be thrown out, and then I'm getting things clean, and then I want to put the liners right back in. I'm using a fiber cloth, microfiber cloth, that's what it's called. Usually, I love my paper towels, but once in a while I will use a cloth. One of the things I had seen online, I can't remember the woman's channel, she cleans for free and she's from a European country. So it starts with an A. Katarina or something like that. Anyway, she was saying whenever you use a microfiber cloth, you use it, then you fold it, use another side, fold it, use another side. So I'm always complaining how mine will pick up debris, dust, cat hair, and lay it down somewhere else. Well, it's because I don't fold it and turn it. So maybe I will be a believer after all. I had these liners before, And then, okay, so first I had taken them out and not put them back in. By the way, love my Lazy Susans, even though I'm really the only one in the family that puts anything back in the Lazy Susans. So I'm constantly, when I open the fridge, I'll be putting things in the Lazy Susans that people used and didn't put back. Anyway, I digress. I had taken them off before Christmas, and then I didn't put them back on. To make matters even worse, I put them under the island. I don't know why I thought I would think to look there again, but then I could not find them, much like my steamer pads. And so then I couldn't put them back because I couldn't find them. So I was looking for something under the island where I keep my crock pots. And then I was like, oh, look, it's the liners to my refrigerator. So I pulled them out. I've had them on the countertop for a while, long enough that one of them I had to wipe down because it was dirty again. Then there was tofu in that container, so I had to put it in a different container because it was easily leaking. So these are just the adventures you have whenever you do your refrigerator. And it would be nice if all my veggies went in the crisper, but right now I have too many veggies to put them in the crisper. So between veggies and fruit, there just was too much. That spinach needed to go. I love watching those videos where they stack everything so beautifully in the refrigerator, how everything fits perfectly. I know it can't be completely real because life doesn't work that way. I always wonder, you'll see someone have 2 kids and they've got like 85 yogurts, and I'm thinking, who is eating all of this yogurt? How are you getting this eaten before it expires? It's just such a mystery. Or their fruits all fit in the left crisper and their veggies all fit in the right crisper. It's like everything fits so perfectly. But over here in real life land, I have more veggies than are ever going to fit in my veggie crispers. So we do what we can. We listen and we don't judge. We look and we don't judge. So it's up to me not to judge those people whose refrigerators seem to magically fit every single thing and they have the cutest container for everything. Maybe I'll be there someday. Today is not that day, and tomorrow's not looking good either. But for now, I'm loving those 2 shelves. And that wraps up our work for today. I hope it motivated you. Remember, as always, God loves you. I love you too. I can't wait to see you next time, which should be Friday.